Hi, I'm Raphael Heath, the Head of Geography at the Royal High School, Bath, and this is part 8 of a series of screencasts explaining how to use GIS to analyse crime data, and this is supported by the Royal Geographical Society as part of the Innovative Teaching Grant they awarded. And this particular one is looking at analysing spatial links in data. This isn't something that's going to be relevant to everyone's study or project, but it might be something you'll be interested in and look at what it can do and how it can do. It's just another data analysis tool. All these data analysis tools are only available for subscribers to ArcGIS Online, so just be aware of that. So I've talked before about bringing in data. We've got crime data here. And we might filter that crime data to a particular variable. So let's just look at the crime type being antisocial behaviour. Okay, spell that right. My filter starts with anti-right. Okay, so that will have reduced a little bit of the data that's in there. Every dot now should be just antisocial behaviour. Okay, so this could be done for all kinds of things. I brought in a bit more data here just to illustrate this from what I was showing before, but the same principles. And you can see here there's 19 dots of data on this point, for example. This is a whole year's worth of data that I produced for Bath. So I talked earlier about sort of bringing in a month's data and perhaps combining more in the spreadsheet when you brought it in. Then we talked about the idea that you could get some primary data for locations. So I talked about crime vulnerability study that you might do in a particular location. So you can use the same principle to not necessarily put in any data, but just mark a point on a map perhaps. One thing you could look at, let's say, is something that could be affecting crime in an area and sort of mapping it, whether it's derelict buildings or streetlights and so on. And their locations, or CCTV cameras would be quite a good one, or something like that. Let's have a look at something that might affect antisocial behaviour in Bath City Centre, something like late night businesses. So instead of having this as a crime vulnerability survey, as I showed you before, you can just edit it and create lots of points on the map for various locations. Let's say it was wherever there was somewhere that was open late at night, pubs, bars, fast food places and so on. Alternatively, you don't have to create it like the crime vulnerability study. You could do it like I showed you before with the study areas, where you just create pins on the map from the ad I told you before, map notes, and just create lots of pins on the map and work off that basis. So you're just locating places that you've identified or found, perhaps using primary surveys. You've walked around town, either marking it on a map and transferring it into here, or doing it offline. So here's one I've done earlier. Here's a map of late night businesses. You'll see that I've actually changed the symbols to a beer mug, as it were, to show sort of places that are open late at night. So I've got late night establishments and I've got the crime data, and I want to do a bit of analysis to see if there's any relationship between any particular late night establishments and concentrations of crime that might be happening nearby. It's really not something that's very clear, as you can see visually from this, and that's not helped by the fact that, for example, one of these dots has 15 crimes on, so I can't really see how many crimes there are directly. I could use one of my layers from earlier. Perhaps let's have a look at density map or something like that, and that already can start to give me some patterns of that. But I can do another type of approach to this and do it sort of the other way around. So this time I'm going to use the analysis tool for the late night businesses that I've manually plotted on here, or maybe got a data set of their location or something like that. And I'm going to do perform analysis a slightly different way. I'm going to do summarize data this time, and this one's called summarize nearby. So if I go to summarize nearby here, I've got some choices. I'll just expand the view on this so you can see it a bit more clearly. So it says choose layer from which the distances are to be summarised. So I've got all my layers in the map. I want late night businesses to be the layer it's working off. And then it says choose the layer to summarise. I've got to be really careful to pick the right layer, particularly if I've got lots of layers on my map. So it wasn't the study area points. I've got to look down here. What do I want to summarise? Well, I want my year's worth of crime data. November 2012 13 crime data, for example, is a layer produced a few years ago that was ready for this. But I could equally use my just 1 month data of May 2015 and so on that I've showed earlier in these tutorials. So then I choose how I'm going to summarize the data. So this is quite clever. I could do it in line distance, but I could do it in walking time. So let's think, well, someone goes to a late night establishment and then they stagger out at various times of the day and then get involved in antisocial behaviour. So I could base it on like a walking time or a walking distance from a particular location. Or driving times and so on. So it's all very clever, or just a line distance. Let's do it just based on line distance for simplicity, but you can play around with the others. They create quite interesting shapes in themselves for their own analysis. I'm going to go for meters here, and let's go for 100 meters. 75 meters, okay. So quite close distance to each of these late night establishments I've got here, 75 meters distance from them, seeing whether people perhaps stumble out and get involved in crime. I could obviously do it for bigger distances, but then the argument starts to become whether you can really attribute it to that location or not. So I'm picking a small distance here that perhaps one could argue maybe we could feed it back and wonder whether the location contributed to the behaviour. Return bounding areas, we'll put a circle on. I'll see how far the distance was, the 75 meters from each point. Add statistics, I'm just going to have the counter points. I don't need to play around with anything there, or grouping and so on. That's for more complicated, sophisticated work. So I'm going to crime data in late night. Just put the word test there. Okay, so you give it a name. You'll give it an automatic name, but you can change that and where you want to save it, and the folder you're saving it in. And move across here. Just double checking. So it's using current map extent should be selected. Oops, there we go. So that it's only this area that's going to be analysed, not other areas where I might put in data. I can check the credits it's using. So it's got 777 crimes it's going to be looking at, so it's quite a lot of data it's going to be looking at, but it's only going to take 1.7 credits to do that. So let's try this out, run analysis, and see what happens. So it's doing a little bit of whirring, a little bit of thinking now. So the idea behind this is it's going to look at 75 meters around every single late night establishment here. It's going to produce a 75 meter circle around it. It's going to count the number of crimes that fall within those circles, and by doing that I can see if any particular location has a higher concentration of antisocial behaviour near it. So remember, you can do this for all crimes, but I've filtered it down, so again you're sort of processing the data into the form that you want for the investigation that you're looking at. So still thinking a little bit on this and see what it comes up with. Okay, it's done it. You can see these circles represent 75 meters next to each place, and it's tried a little symbol. It's not very clear from the symbol what it's showing as such, so let's try and show it in another way. Let's switch off some things we might not need. So, okay, so these are the layers. I can vaguely see there's some bigger circles here, but it's not really clear. Let's play around with the symbols a little bit. Change style. And let's see what might work for this. So this is the data I've just made, original data. I want to show counterpoints. That's the number of crimes it counted. So you can see some places had 156 to 250 odd crimes within 75 meters of them. Other places only had 12 to 18. So that's what it's showing us. Let's just try doing it on colours to show the difference. So here we've got a colour system where I can see the darker areas have a larger proportion of crimes nearby. Let's see symbols. So here I can control the colour scheme and the outline for it. That's might help a bit. No, I think it's reasonably clear as it is. Okay. So what I'm beginning to see, that these circles are quite large to see it from. See if I zoom in when it becomes a bit clearer. Is that we've got some darker circles here, but they're overlapping each other, so it's slightly unclear. To show it, counting amounts, location types. Okay, so I only two choices of these to show it. Can I change? I don't think I can change the size. I'm just double checking if I've missed something. Classify data. It's not going to help you there. Okay. possibly if I... Nope. It's not going to help a lot. Okay, so that's one way of showing it. The other way is proportional symbols. Let's see if I can make these stand out a little bit more. Perhaps by boosting up my maximum ones, maximum size of symbols, bring my smaller ones down might reinforce the data a little bit, exaggerate it visually. Let's see how this is looking. Okay. I think that polygon symbol I might be able to get rid of. Let's try doing... What's that do? Fill. Aha. Right, sorry, the transparency was fine. Maybe it's border, so I can keep the border if I want, but the outline I could make it more transparent, and that might make it easier to see the different symbols. Could change the line width a bit smaller, perhaps as well. See if that helps a little bit. Okay, so that sort of shows me the circles that it was searching from every late night establishment, but it doesn't sort of clutter the map too much. And now I can start to see these bigger areas a bit more clearly. So if I click on an area here, what we can see is this is the Garrick's Head. It has 257 crimes within 75 metres of it, whereas somewhere over here the New Inn has 17 within 75 metres of it. Now, it might not mean that the pub is, or that location is causing the criminal activity, but it's just a way of spatially beginning to look at relationships in your data and begin to wonder and ask those questions, and it perhaps would lead on to other surveys and interviews and discussions with perhaps the local police force, or us sending an email in and asking whether there are reasons for these clusters that you've begun to see. So I'll leave it at that for the moment. You can see how you continue to play around with that to make it more effective potentially, but the basic principle is there of showing you how you can do an analysis based on spatial relationships, distance from a particular location. There's lots of ways you can use that for lots of different things, and showing you how you might use it within a context of a crime study particularly. So that was part 8, looking at analysing spatial patterns. Not something that necessarily everyone will be doing in their investigation, but it's an option there for something that's quite interesting. It could be primary data, where you then collect the locations of these places, so you bring primary data in and then running this kind of analysis on the crime data to look at the relationships. And there's lots of interesting things you could collect to look at those relationships. I mentioned CCTV cameras before, lighting and other factors that you might consider. Okay, that's it for this one. I'm Raphael Heath, Head of Geography, and this project is supported by the Royal Geographical Society's Innovative Teaching Grant.